welcome back. I've talked about bad friends and bad people plenty on this channel because I've dealt with them plenty. I have had some crappy friends, and I know people who've had crappy family members, crappy friends, crappy relationships. I've had plenty of those too. And a lot of us, especially in the modern day and age, due to internet, due to us being home so much, we kind of stick around the same people so often. So, maybe you met someone in middle school, but you never want to let go of them. You're like, well, we have similar tastes. We've known each other for so long. Even if they're crappy to me, I don't want to get rid of them. So, it's harder to let people go than it is to bring people in. We're in such an antisocial age, so people tend to not make friends. They tend to keep what they have around them. And this is really, this complacency is really everywhere, from work to your living space to really anything, but we'll get to that. And so I have, been like this. I have not wanted to get rid of friends. I wanted to keep them around. And I've set these expectations where in my mind, this person isn't who they were yesterday when they were crappy to me, or last week, or last month, or last year. They were, oh, 5 years ago we hung out and it was really nice. Or, oh, they could be a really great person. Or, oh, we have this similar taste. Like maybe we'll go watch a movie like that sometime. If that makes any sense, I have these expectations, these wants that I want from this person. And I continue to push and push and push and hope that it'll happen, but they continue to act crappy towards me. And it just doesn't work out. Such as I had this friend who we used to hang out all the time and we used to be great friends. And then things kind of broke down and we stopped being friends for a bit. And then we became friends again. And when we would talk on the phone, he just seemed like to not like me, if that made sense. Or he seemed jealous. Like I tell him something good going on for me and he would devalue it. Oh, is it really that good? Or, oh, that's okay. One time I told him I got a job and he was like, yeah, that's good for what you want. And it was just like, oh, I thought it was just good. And yeah, it wasn't like a one-off thing. It was over and over and over, and it became this thing where he would invite me to something, whether it be in person or on a video game or something. And then I'd be like, okay, yeah. And then he'd be like, oh, actually, it's not happening anymore. Actually, I'm not doing that. Over and over and over. And I would continue to just almost fall for it because I was like, well, we used to hang out and I enjoyed being friends, so let's go for it. And I didn't have any hatred to him, even though he had done me bad in the past. I was like, you know what, we can still be friends. Like, let's go for it. And it just was consistently like that. Like, majority of the times he would ask, it would not happen, and it would be because of him being like, oh, well, I'm not doing it anymore. And it, like I said, it wasn't once or twice. This was like so many times, over and over. And I would respond sometimes an hour late, or just respond sometimes like 5 minutes after. And I'm like stuttering right now because I just can't believe that's so true. Or like, I can't believe this is real. Because he had such a, I don't know if it animosity, or just hatred, or just, disliked how things went poorly in the past. I don't know. But he would do this over and over. And he did it the other day. And instead of thinking, oh, we could hang out, or, oh, these expectations I had before, like, oh, we're going to hang out, it's going to be great, which, by the way, I was also doing something, so I wasn't going to give him. But yeah, he invited me, and I didn't even respond because I was like, I'm not going to give in to this. I'm not going to think about these expectations I have. I'm not going to think about this want and this, this desire to have a good friendship here, because these expectations aren't reality. You can't force someone to do something. What's that old saying? You can bring a horse to water, you can't make it drink. Something like that. You can't change reality. If this person can be a good friend, they're going to be a good friend. But after being done dirty so many times, I'm not going to be fooled again. I'm not going to give in to these expectations. I'm not going to be like, well, he could be a great friend. No. And if he has changed, just in a sudden like snap of a finger, I'm not going to let today be the day where he just gets away with it and now we're good friends again. No. You can't just come into my life like that. You have to set these boundaries and you have to do this for yourself. But this goes to every aspect of life. And what I was getting to. Maybe you're in a degree field, and I did this. I used to be an engineering student, and I would just continue to do it. And I would be like, oh, eventually I'll like it. Eventually I'll like it. Eventually I like it. And eventually I did a bunch of certifications that were in engineering specified things. And I did the test and I passed them. And after, I was just like, I still hate this. I still don't like this. And so I eventually changed to something I like more, or something like work. I worked at this job and it was the best job I ever had on paper, but when I was actually there, I hated it. My bosses sucked. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't good, and I wasn't like, nothing was going well. And I just kept pushing forward because I was like, eventually this will work out, and this looks good on paper, or maybe I can use this to get somewhere higher in the company. And it just never worked out. And I was miserable and I kept staying. I kept staying, kept staying for these expectations in my mind, this possibility. And it's not like, you're staying somewhere and, oh, this will happen in a certain amount of time. It's not like anything was guaranteed. This was just hopes or like wants. And it wouldn't happen. So eventually I quit that job and I moved on to something better, which was a great choice. And now I'm in a way better spot. And this has happened so many times: relationships, friendships, just so many areas of my life where things are not going well. You know, it's like if you're doing a workout, you're doing a leg workout, and you're like, well, someone online said it's going to do this. So I think it's going to do this to my glutes or whatever. So I'm going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And you see nothing over time. And then you just don't want to change it because this possibility that something could happen. But if you change it, you could just get results right then and there. So then you change it. I know it's not the best example, but really the friendship thing is the best example. You could drop this bad friend who's doing you dirty over and over and over and open up that spot in your life for someone who could do you better. Maybe you won't meet a good friend the next day or the next month. Maybe it'll take a year or so, but you will meet that person. Instead, you're giving this energy to this person based on expectations or the past or one of these things. No, these expectations are not that person. That's what you want and that's what you desire. And you can find that in another person. You desire a good friend. If that person's not a good friend, then they won't just change overnight. Same thing with work, same thing with school, same thing with so many other areas of your life. If it's not clicking, if it's not working, then it's not just going to click or change overnight because of this want that you have in your brain, these expectations. That's not going to happen. And that's why I did not give my energy to that person. And that's why I'm very happy about that. And that's why I'm sorry about that loud door in the background. But stand up for yourself, change your life. Don't give in to people or wants or any of these things based on these expectations or these dreams that you have in your head of something that could happen, because that's probably not what's going to happen. And it's good to be realistic, because being realistic, you can have way better things than what your mind was even imagining. Oh, I imagine he's going to be a good friend like the past. Well, I could just go find a better friend who'd be way better than he ever was. Boom. Thank you for watching. Hopefully, you got that message. Let go of these things that are doing you wrong based on possibilities and go find something real. Subscribe. Bye.